Do you know your Tanium risk score? Well, you'll find out soon in this episode of To the Point. Hello, I'm Maggie Miller, here with Yaron Regev to learn more about the risk to your organization and how you can get your Tanium risk score to start mitigating those issues today. Hi, Yaron. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Maggie. It's good to be here.
Well, risk is everywhere for organizations today. It's unpatched endpoints, malware variants, shadow IT, and so much more. So why is it important for organizations to know their risk score?
It's for the same reason that people should know their credit score, and for the same reason that people should know their overall bill of health. The reality is that risk is everywhere, and we have to live with risk, and we have to know how to manage it, because all the advancements in technologies out there are as accessible to the bad actors as they are to us. And we need to start having a mindset of being hunters versus just the prey. And that involves being able to continuously assess how are we doing, what are we doing well, and what are our blind spots.
And what are some of the challenges that organizations face when trying to measure and understand their risk?
I think that most of the challenges can be summed up in the people, technology, and processes buckets, right? From a technology standpoint, most of the organizations that we interact with, they're having real challenges assessing what they really have in their estate. And it's kind of crazy because almost every organization have firewalls and antiviruses and asset inventory management, compliance management, and patch management. And then when we ask them some really basic questions about what do you have in your estate? Where is it? Who's using it? What's on it? What's your risk volume? They just don't know. And either we're getting some fuzzy logic or we're getting some shocking low resolution ranges. And that's definitely a technology problem that they have to overcome. From a processes perspective, even if they had different tools that gave them all this information, their processes are usually not mature enough to be able to assess and analyze data at that kind of messes coming from different cells of the organizations, and being able to come up with really actionable insights about their own risk posture. And from a people element, most of us really don't want to take the ownership of making decisions, either based on not enough information or too much information, where we're getting sensory overload, especially when some of our decisions can lead to noticeable impact on the organization, especially from a security standpoint. Now, on top of that, even if organizations did figure out their people, processes, and technologies, what they still lack of is the ability to compare their own maturity level with their peers in the industry and figuring out what is good enough. Are we actually doing good, or are we behind the curve?
And Tanium is going to help organizations by offering this no-cost risk assessment. So what is involved in the risk assessment itself?
Yeah, the process is pretty simple, and it's simple enough to be approachable by most organizations out there. It starts by us signing a mutual NDA agreement so we can put the right safeguards on the data sensitivity that we're going to be sharing with each other. And it follows by a 5-day process with about 5 hours of interaction across those 5 days. The majority of them was on day one, as we've set up everything we need for the assessment. And at the end of those 5 days, we're going to be delivering a very detailed, actionable report that organizations can use to improve their overall risk posture as quickly and efficiently as possible.
And how is Tanium's risk assessment different from other similar risk assessments that are in the market?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the reality is that there are many companies out there that offer their own versions of risk assessments. And a lot of them are jaded by what they're trying to sell. If you're talking to a networking company, they're going to offer an assessment that will result in a recommendation you need to buy more firewalls. And if you're going to talk to a data management storage company, they're going to run a risk assessment that's focused on how you're doing against your backups, and you need to take more of those. And the problem with all of those risk assessment and all of those companies is that all of them are right. They're absolutely right, but they're all very narrowly looking at the prospect of risk. Risk is a much bigger thing. And what organizations need is the ability to take a step back and look at risk more holistically and understand where they are without being jaded towards one technology or the other. This is where Tanium is unique. Tanium offers a second to none visibility into endpoints on fidelity and quality of data that is both actionable and comparable. The data that we provide is an objective industry benchmark that allows organizations to figure out how am I doing, and how am I doing, even more importantly, compared to other organizations in other industries, and it helps them prepare for some events like audits or cyber insurance policy renewals. So they're much better aimed with data to deal with them.
Of course, it's important to know your risk score, but you also need to act on those that assessment. So what happens after the risk assessment with Tanium?
That's a wonderful question. And one of the great things about the Tanium risk assessment is that the report is highly prioritized and actionable. So when we're providing this report back to organizations, it's like getting a guided map that you can follow and execute to improve your overall risk posture pretty quickly. At that point, those organizations can choose to go through the report and execute our suggestions at own pace and using their own tools, or they can choose to leverage the Tanium technology and our partner services to expedite the process, and giving them access to this kind of analysis and information in real time, every day, all day, versus doing this as a one-off assessment activity.
Great advice. Any other takeaways you have that you'd like to share about risk?
And if there was one takeaway, aside from risk being real and risk having to be actionable, is the fact that even more importantly is understanding what risk means to you in the context of the industry and others. So it's not enough to know how you're doing against risk or your own risk assessment, but you got to know if what you're doing is good enough or if it requires some extra attention.
And that is a really important takeaway. So thank you so much, Yaron, for joining us today and sharing your insights.
Thank you, Maggie. Happy to be here.
Thank you all for watching. You can go to tanium.com to learn about how to take your risk assessment. And thank you for watching. I'm Maggie Miller, and this is To The Point.